You are listening to Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan.
Chapter 23. Buck and Paul parked their jeeps behind Chief Molina's SUV and slid out. Buck walked up to the chief, who was standing outside his vehicle, talking with an older officer. They shook hands. "What have we got?" asked Buck. "Your two suspects are still having breakfast. Been in there a while, so they should be getting close to being done. The APB on the truck mentioned it was wanted in connection with a homicide in Gypsum. You want to tell me what we might be walking into?" "You need to keep this under your hat for now," said Buck. The chief nodded. "We have two dead bodies, one a geologist and one the wife of a geologist, that were found between here and Gypsum. We also have a missing geologist. There is a possibility that these murders are connected to the rock slide in the canyon." "The slide was man-made?" asked the chief. "Yeah, we think so. Lab results on dust samples we took from the tunnel show explosive residue. Not much, but it changed the way we were thinking. The two bodies only added to that." "Fuck, Buck. You've got to be kidding. Who would do such a thing and why?" asked the chief. "All good questions, Gabe." Buck pointed at the truck. That truck and its occupants were seen leaving one of the murder scenes. The wife of the geologist. The chief was about to say something when the officer said over his shoulder, "Chief, two guys coming out of the cafe and getting in the truck." Chief Molina looked at Buck. "Officer, pull in behind them when they back out. Let them know you're there, but stay with your vehicle. Do not approach." "Chief, who else have we got?" "I've got two cars on the other side of the highway facing the parking lot." Buck was impressed. The chief had positioned his units to block off both ways out of the parking lot. The truck would have nowhere to go, but Buck always expected that anything could happen during a stop like this. He didn't know how right he was. They headed for their vehicles. The officer pulled forward and turned into the parking lot. He stopped behind the truck as it backed into the drive aisle, hit his lights and whooped his siren. He slid out of his patrol vehicle and positioned himself near the back with his shotgun. He leaned on the trunk and waited. Two more Glenwood Springs PD SUVs entered the drive aisle from the other side and blocked the exit. The chief, Buck and Paul pulled in behind them and exited their vehicles with weapons drawn. Buck pulled his microphone off the clip on the dash, turned his radio to PA and pushed the button. He hesitated for a moment as he saw someone inside the cafe approach the front door and appear to lock it. "Smart move. Driver of the yellow truck. Turn off the engine and place your hands on the top of the steering wheel where we can see them." Buck's voice was calm and authoritative. "Passenger, roll down your window and put your hands out. Do it now." Buck could see the driver and passenger talking. The passenger, hands out of view, appeared agitated. It looked like the driver was trying to calm him down. Buck had a bad feeling about this. "Driver, hands where we can see them. Passenger, hands out the window. Do it now," he repeated. Buck was patient. He had learned a long time ago never to make threats you weren't prepared to back up. He never said things like, "You have 1 minute to," or "If you don't do this, we will." He always laughed at the cop shows on TV, where there were always threats being made and timelines to meet. He could wait. Buck had made patience into an art form. There had been a story circulating the CBI offices for years about Buck getting a murderer to confess just by sitting at the table opposite him and not saying a word for 4 or 5 hours. Of course, the time got longer or shorter depending on who told the story, but it was always told as a sign of respect. Paul had made his way along the back side of a row of cars until he was perpendicular to the driver's door. He looked at his sightlines and realized that a missed shot would go through the front window of the cafe. He wouldn't let that happen. He moved back towards Buck and the chief. Buck keyed the mic. "There's no way out of here. We've got you boxed in. Let's talk about a solution to this problem so that no one gets hurt." The driver turned off the engine and placed both hands on the top of the steering wheel. Buck waited. The passenger window rolled down, and the passenger put both hands out the window. "Fuck," said the chief. Is that what I think it is? Shit, came the responses from several of his officers. Buck looked at the brown tube in the passenger's right hand. TNT, said Buck. He turned to Chief Molina. Call dispatch and have them call the cafe. Tell them to get everyone out through the back door as quickly as possible. I need to call SWAT. It's gonna take time, the chief said as he keyed the mic on his shoulder. We don't have time for SWAT, said Buck, watching the truck. We need to end this now. The chief relayed the message to his dispatcher. Buck turned and looked at Paul. Get your rifle and set up somewhere behind the truck. Scope the passenger. 2 fingers, green light. The driver appeared to be talking to the passenger. It seemed like they were engaged in an animated conversation. Paul ran to his Jeep, pulled his rifle out of the gun safe that was mounted in the floor and, staying low, ran behind the cars and found a vantage point on the opposite side of the parking lot. He assembled the rifle, attached the scope and sighted in on the back window of the truck. He put the crosshairs on the passenger. Passenger, said Buck. What is your intention? We're getting out of here, yelled the passenger through the window. If you don't back off all these cops, I will light this and blow us all up. And don't think I won't. Driver. Are you going along with this plan? The driver shook his head and said something to the passenger. The passenger reached his left hand into the truck and came back out with a lighter. Passenger, no one has gotten hurt so far. Why don't we keep it that way? While he was talking, Buck raised 2 fingers in the air in the shape of a V. The passenger flicked the lighter, and a yellow flame ignited from the top. I have enough TNT, said the passenger, to destroy most of this parking lot. Don't push me. Get those fucking cars moved or I swear. He never finished the sentence, as the truck's back window exploded and a red mist and gray matter covered the front windshield. The driver threw open the door and fell to the ground. Don't shoot. I'm unarmed. I surrender. He started crawling away from the truck. The chief and 2 of his officers ran forward and held their weapons on him. The chief cuffed him and then frisked him before letting him stand up. He looked in the truck. Fuck man. You shot him. I could have talked him down. He made his choice, said Buck as he approached the truck. I would have waited all day, but your buddy pushed the issue. Is there any more dynamite in the truck? I don't know, said the driver. He pulled that out of his backpack. I didn't know he had it. Scared the shit out of me. Buck looked through the door and saw the backpack on the floor. Chief, please lock him up until the sheriff can send an investigator. I'll be along in a minute to question him. Make him as comfortable as possible. Sirens could be heard in the distance, and moments later, a paramedic unit arrived at the parking lot. The paramedics exited their vehicle and sprinted towards the truck. They stopped running when they saw the red splatter all over the windshield. One paramedic reached through the window and pressed his fingers on the passenger's neck, even though it was obvious he was dead. He shook his head and walked back to the ambulance to get the gurney and a body bag. Having disassembled his rifle, Paul walked up and placed it back in the gun safe. Do you think he would have done it? Asked Paul. Couldn't take the risk, said Buck. Paul looked to where Buck was looking. The storefront 2 doors down had a large sign hanging over the door that read Drop-in Daycare. He called the director, explained the situation, and asked him to call the district attorney who covered Garfield County and have him send out a shooting investigation team and the State Patrol bomb squad. He needed to make sure there were no other explosives in the truck. He called Sheriff Weaver and asked him to send his forensic unit to oversee the shooting investigation. The chief directed one of his officers to hang some crime scene tape around the truck and to stay until the forensic unit and the bomb squad arrived, and then he left to follow his other deputy and the prisoner back to the police station. Buck walked over and patted Paul on the shoulder. You okay? I'm good, said Paul. You want me to wait for the shooting team and forensics? Yeah, and then head back to Grand Junction and work with George and Mel. You'll be on desk duty until the shooting team is done. I'll call Bax to head back out here. He walked back to his Jeep while he phoned Bax. He slid into the seat and disconnected the call. Today did not go as he had planned. He pulled out of the parking lot and headed to police headquarters. He had a statement to make and an interview to start.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan. You can find the entire crime series as well as other novels by Chuck Morgan at chuckmorganbooks.com or on Amazon.